This is the Ramana Maharshi Upadesa Saram satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and to deeply inquire into the self. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm a seeker like you, sharing what we love. I've been blessed with years of deep teaching and practice that I bring to this satsang. Now, this week I will start on the Ramana Maharshi text Upadesa Saram, Essence of Instruction, or Upadesa Undiyar in Tamil, and I'll cover verses 3 to 7, in which Ramana deals with selfless service, karma, and devotion, or Bhakti. I'll use Professor Swaminathan's translation of Upadesa Saram. The importance of these practices, self-service, selfless service, and devotion, is stressed by Ramana in Talks with Ramana Maharshi from Talk 27. If, however, the aspirant is not temperamentally suited to Vichara Marga, self-inquiry, he must develop bhakti, devotion to an ideal, maybe God, Guru, humanity in general, ethical laws, or even the ideas of beauty. When one of these takes possession of the individual, other attachments grow weaker and dispassion develops. Attachment for the ideal simultaneously grows and finally holds the field. Thus, concentration grows simultaneously and imperceptibly with or without visions or direct aids. If an aspirant be unsuited temperamentally for other methods, then he must try karma marga, doing good deeds, for example, social service. His nobler instincts become more evident and he derives impersonal pleasure. His smaller self is less assertive and has a chance of expanding his good side. Although Ramana focused his teaching on self-inquiry and said if one takes a self-inquiry, none of the other yogas are necessary, it shows in this talk that he recognized that not everybody is suited to inquiry. For those not suited to inquiry, he recommended the three preliminary yogas of karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and raja yoga, selfless service, love of God, and then concentration practices. As they progress through these, they will become naturally suited to self-inquiry. This is important. Not everyone is suited to self-inquiry. It's actually an advanced practice. If you're not suited for it, it is difficult. You seem to make no progress. If this is the case, then Ramana suggests, and I agree with this suggestion, go back to an earlier stage. Maybe selfless service, maybe karma yoga, maybe bhakti, maybe gaining concentration through something like mindful breathing. Also, you should note that Ramana, who stood as the highest, still every day did selfless service, and every day showed his love of the highest. These were not things he gave up, reaching and becoming himself the highest. These were a natural part of his everyday life. So now I'm going to read from some of Ramana's verses here, and I'm going to use a little different view on Zoom to do this, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, do you see me there?
Oh, there you are.
There I am, the little Richard in the corner. So let me make one more screen adjustment, and I'll be there. So now, verse 3, Ramana's words: disinterested action surrendered to the Lord purifies the mind and points the way to moksha. My comment: Karma Yoga starts with the same activities that you've always done, but with a difference. Rather than doing them for yourself, you do them for something bigger than yourself, a higher power. You could give them to the universe, God, humanity, ethical laws, or Ramana says even the idea of beauty. You could even offer them to your highest self. What matters is that now you're not doing them for yourself. You're not doing them for your own gain. Rather, you are selflessly offering your acts as service. The Sanskrit word for this is seva. If you want happiness, then give freely of yourself to the universe. This starts your steps towards liberation. Movement through the stages of practice is something that happens naturally without additional effort. As you mature in one stage, the next arises spontaneously. The next verse, verse 4: this is certain: worship, praise, and meditation bring work of body, speech, and mind, are steps for orderly ascent. Ramana shows the spiritual path is from outer to inner, starting with the body, moving to speech, then to the mind. In worship, this might start with some physical act, like burning incense or offering flowers, then move to words of praise or a chant, then to silent chanting. Each is more interior. The path of outer to inner will continue through all the stages of practice. Now, verse 5: ether, fire, air, water, earth, sun, moon, and living beings. Worship of these, regarded as forms of His, is perfect worship for the Lord. As you deepen in service, something starts naturally to happen. Your heart opens to the object of your service. Service of a higher power leads you to appreciate everything within this power. Service to the universe leads to appreciating and loving the universe and everything within it. This love is the best form of worship. This love is spontaneous. It rises freely, not following any rules or limits. It rises freely and is given freely. Next is verse 6. Better than hymns of praise is repetition of the name. Better low-voiced than loud. But best of all is meditation in the mind. Ramana keeps moving within. Speaking words are good. To focus those words on the higher power is better, but making it internal is best. As you focus and internalize, the mental intensity increases. As this focus increases, you more naturally release your hold on external egoistic desires. This is the meaning, I think, behind the words in the Christian prayer, "Your will be done." Unstated, but included, not my will. Verse 7. Better than spells of meditation is one continuous current, steady as a stream or downward flow of oil. To increase the focus, intensity, and depth of practice, the next step is to move from periodic and episodic practice to continuous. To do this, you have to start moving from merely mental attention, since that cannot be held steady, to something within you that is itself continuous. You start moving past your mind into the being consciousness that lights up the mind. You can start this continuous practice by just noticing that you exist, and you know that you exist. After a while, you'll see and feel that this existence is always, it is continuous. This prepares you for the next stage. All right, and now we have a video from our friend Adyasakti, and he's talking again about these same verses.
Hi everybody, Namaste, and welcome to the third episode of Upadesa Undiyar. Today we're going to talk about the beginning of self-realization, selfless service. Verse 3 reads, desireless action, nishkamya karma, dedicated to God, will purify the mind and show the path to liberation. Now, in the last verses, Bhagwan Ramana talks about the disadvantages of karma kanda, that it binds one to birth and death in the material world. Why? Because you have to take birth again to get the results of your actions. So the beginning of detachment from this is to do the same things you were doing selfishly, but do them unselfishly instead. And there are some notes here that the practices that he's giving in Upadesa Undiyar are in order of their effectiveness. So in other words, although it's very easy for most people to do some kind of seva, selfless service, that's a very slow process. It takes a long time to give any benefit. However, it does have the advantage that one's ordinary activities in the world can be dovetailed or offered in this service. For example, one can worship the deity very nicely in the home with food, incense, water, and so on. And this will give the same benefit as worshiping in the temple. It's still service. One should perform this service with whatever is at hand, with whatever activities are normally going on in the life anyway. And that will bring you closer to God. Why? Because you're not doing it for your own benefit. In fact, even doing service for the sake of your own spiritual advancement is not really pure. One should do the service simply because God recommends it in the scriptures. And the teachers also, all the teachers recommend it. Even the teachers on the religious level recommend it. It's also the only spiritual practice that can be done in a group. In a group, one can get together and offer things in the temple, or chant, or hear holy discourses, and so on. But the higher stages of spiritual practice are done with the heart and the mind. And so they're best done alone. In fact, if one doesn't go off alone, it's almost certain he's not going to be able to attain the highest enlightenment. So these group practices are just a beginning. So while it's true that no action done with the body, heart, or mind can give complete liberation, still the service that we do can prepare us for that liberation by purifying us from selfishness. This motivation of gain and competition is very, very destructive. Again, because it's purva karma. It's based on what I did in the past, I'm going to get something in the future. And so it binds us to that future, to receive our karma. To be free from that, we have to act simply out of duty, or even better, out of love. See, there are two ranges of this service, devotional service. According to instructions, which is called Vedic Bhakti, Vedic means instructions, or according to love, Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga means one is following a certain mood. Raga, Atmika, Anuga. So one gets a certain mood in the heart towards the object of worship, and then begins to follow that mood, and the mood becomes like God. The mood becomes the guru. The mood itself becomes the means of service. And so there should be love, and when that love is there, the service is spontaneous. He doesn't require any more external guru. He doesn't require any more external group to support his service or to motivate his service. He simply does it spontaneously out of love. And this is the highest level of service and seva. Bhagwan also points out that self-inquiry
Who's this?
is not an action. So it doesn't fall under even this classification of seva. but it comes in a higher plane. And we'll describe that in later verses. We'll discuss it also. And that way you can understand the complete spectrum of spiritual practices. Now for the next verse. This is certain. Puja, japa, and dhyana are actions of the body, speech, and mind, respectively. Each succeeding one is superior to the last. So service done with the body is good. Service done with the heart is better. Service done as a physical action is liberating from selfishness. But to create this wonderful mood of bhakti requires concentration. Concentration comes from japa. Japa means repetition of the holy names. Whatever form of Godhead that you worship, you should repeat their mantra or their holy name. And this leads to dhyana, meditation. Dhyana is when the mind is fully concentrated, single-pointed on one object. And that object should be our mantra. This is how Bhagwan Ramana defines dhyana. So I recommend the Gayatri mantra. And why is that? Because Gayatri points directly to Brahman as the supreme. Now there are so many different forms of God, Shiva, Rama, Krishna, Ganesh, and so on. And all of them have different qualities. So people of different nature are attracted to them according to their preferences. And that's fine. But ultimately, all those avatars, all those devas, are emanations from Brahman. The Brahman is the substrate of pure consciousness that gives rise to all creations, all manifestations, all emanations. Therefore, if we start out from the beginning trying to approach Brahman with Gayatri mantra, then we'll save ourselves a lot of trouble. Now, as far as I know, there aren't too many groups that chant Gayatri mantra as kirtan. In the future, we may establish one. Well, we'll see. The next verse. Worship of any of the 8 forms, thinking that all the 8 forms are forms of God, is good worship, puja, of God. So in the scriptures and in the temples, we see many forms of God. And they can be made of stone, wood, metal, earth. Sometimes a temporary form is made of plaster and then destroyed at the end of the worship. That's usually karma kanda worship, which is done for a specific purpose, like wealth, children, or something like that. We don't recommend that. Ramana here recommends only selfless service, unselfish service, performed not for any particular goal except self-realization. And even then, we shouldn't be thinking, oh, I want self-realization while we're doing it. We should do it simply because we love the idea and we love God. Seva, or puja, can only be done to the elements, such as earth, water, fire, air, ether, and so on, by ritual service. In other words, if you go to the temple, you see the pujari is offering lamps and incense and water and so many of the elements to the form of God. So these are understood to be extensions or expansions of God himself. The incense, for example, represents earth. As it's stated in Bhagavad Gita, aroma is the quality of earth. Taste is the quality of water. And so the next thing offered is water, and then fire. Light is the quality of fire. Sound is the quality of ether. Akash, or space. So if we offer these things to God in service, they become purifying, liberating. Although they don't give the highest enlightenment in themselves, still it's the first step on the path. Now, we can also worship living beings, animals and humans, as expansions of God, forms of God. And of course, that begins with worship of the Guru. Worship of the Guru is very, very important. Guru Puja and Guru Bhakti is even more important, to develop love for the Guru. Because after all, the Guru is giving the highest benefit. Not that it's a business deal. Oh, I'll love you and you give me enlightenment. No, but we love the Guru because he is the perfected form of the human being. So when we encounter someone like Ramana Bhagwan, we automatically want to love him because of his perfection, because of his beauty and his enlightenment. Not because he can benefit us. Well, he can benefit us, but that shouldn't be the motivating force. However, we can also worship God in the forms of other living beings by giving them food, shelter, clothing, and so on. We can't do this in the case of the elements. They can only be worshipped by formal puja. But informal or appropriate service can be done to any living entity with the same mood. And that's just as good, or maybe even better. Now the next verse. Rather than praising God, japa is good. Rather than japa done in a loud voice, japa faintly whispered within the mouth is good. And rather than japa within the mouth, japa done by mind is good. This mental repetition, or manasika japa, is what is called meditation, dhyana. So this is Ramana Maharshi's definition of dhyana. Dhyana is when we repeat our mantra mentally, silently, in the mind. Why is this so beneficial? Yes, it's good to chant our mantra with the mouth and ears, and even holding the beads to engage the sense of touch, and so on. That's very nice. But when we focus on the mantra in the mind, what this does is it crowds out the mental chatter. It's perfectly possible to sit there and chant the mantra and have the mind going a mile a minute, thinking of this and that, isn't it? But what we're saying is that if you simply repeat the mantra without thinking of anything else, we have focused the mind on one thought, dhyana, meditation. And then from there, if we simply get rid of that one thought, then we've reached the goal of the silent mind. That's why silent japa, mental japa, is considered superior. Next verse. Rather than meditation interrupted by other thoughts, uninterrupted meditation upon God, like a river or the falling of ghee, is excellent to do. So in other words, one lady, for example, asked Ramana, what mantra is good? And he said, well, any mantra, you know how he is. Any mantra is good, yeah. And then she said, will Gayatri do? And he said, what can excel it? What mantra is superior to Gayatri? And so we practice and we recommend Gayatri mantra. And then she asked, well, then how long should I chant? Half an hour? 1 hour? And he says, all the time, or as much as possible. So in other words, if we really want to chant this mantra successfully, if we really want to realize this mantra, we should chant at all times and places. Keep our beads with us constantly. Keep them in our hands constantly. Fall asleep with our beads in our hands. Wake up with our beads in our hands, chanting. Make it automatic. The last thought at night will be the first thought in the morning. So it's best, if you're meditating on mantra, to fall asleep with the mantra in your mind and heart. And then when you wake up in the morning, first thing you'll think of is the mantra again. And then you can go on with your day, chanting constantly in the mind. And you'll be amazed if you do this practice, actually, how little thinking is required in life. We get up in the morning, go in the bathroom, brush our teeth, go in the kitchen, make a cup of tea, sit down, do our meditation, maybe do a little office work, cook breakfast, correspond with friends. Maybe we go to the market, or we go to the job. We've had the same job for a long time. We could do it practically with our eyes closed. So what is the need of thinking? And if we actually practice chanting this mantra mentally all the time, we find we can keep it up 95% of the time. And there's really little need to use the mind for anything else. So I want to close with a nice shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Purana. The supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So, ahaituki apratihata, unmotivated. In other words, we're not doing it for personal gain. And uninterrupted, which means at all times, in all places, and in all ways. So, this is what we need to really satisfy the self. At this stage of devotion that we're talking about now, the stage of seva, devotional service, bhakti, puja, and like that, we have to make our puja or our bhakti uninterrupted and unmotivated, and that will give us the greatest satisfaction. Why? Because we have detached the mind from purva karma, from selfish gain, from doing this to get that, tit for tat. Business. It's simply a business. I'll do this, God, and then you give me that. No, that's not religion. That's business. So what we're saying is instead, to detach the mind from purva karma, and instead do bhakti out of love, unmotivated and uninterrupted. And that will automatically lead to love of all creatures as emanations from God. This is what our community needs. We see people congregating in groups, and what are they doing? Well, outwardly they may be following some ritual, but in their minds they're searching for a boyfriend or a girlfriend, isn't it? Or maybe a business opportunity, or maybe they're thinking to become socially very well known, famous, or attract followers, like that. They're very rarely there just to do the seva. This is why doing seva alone is such a good indicator of our actual status in spirituality. That if we can be alone without a group to motivate or support us, that we can make advancement so much quicker than being held to a group. Just like a very, very good student will make much more progress studying alone than being held back by a class or a group. So the same thing applies in spiritual life. We should go on our own and see if we can meet this test to perform our devotion unmotivated and uninterrupted and completely satisfy the self. Namaste. Thank you for being with us. Om Tat Sat. Om Harihi Om.
All right. Now we'll take a few minutes and do a little meditation. Breathe in and breathe out long, slow breaths. Feel the breath as it comes in, then as it goes out. Feel your mind quiet. Notice that you exist. You exist, and you know that you exist without feeling it or thinking about it. You just know. Already, this is beyond the body, beyond feeling, beyond mental thought. You just know. And now we're going to inquire and ask ourselves, what does it feel like when you give selfishly with no thought of yourself or what it'll get you? What does it feel like when you act with no thought of yourself? Just giving to the universe. What does it feel like when you love completely? Can you love completely? It means you have to enlarge your ego space to include something or someone else. Can you surrender? Can you just let go? What does this feel like? Can you feel all the space here? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. Now, any questions or comments or discussion?
Well, I would say that to love completely and surrender, it gives you peace. It's a peaceful feeling if you can do it.
hmm For me, that's one of the things still that is hard. I feel like I can do it better feeling like letting go than I can with surrender. It's funny, just the difference in terms makes it different for this male ego I have or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the people here in Panama that I've helped out, and I always gave them the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes they were not honest, but
Yes,
a surrender, it's like, well, that's between you and God, I guess. I just don't have the energy or capability to sort everything out. If you need it that badly that you have to, you know, weasel your way around it, just go and be happy and it's okay. Yeah. But I still, I try to be, have discretion because I think people can get themselves into trouble if they don't have some discretion.
of course. Now, to talk about these verses, uh, I was talking about them really from terms of my own kind of experience, which is a lot more secular than Swamiji's experience. He was speaking about it really from the framework, the Vedic Hindu framework, and I was
Mhm.
still speaking about it more from maybe the Westerner guy from California framework.
I found your commentary way more helpful, way more useful than his.
Ah,
Well, that thank you. I, I recorded that, Carol,
Oh,
so I'll put it on playback, on repeat playback.
well, the context that we're in, like you were saying,
yeah.
it matters. How do I how do I practice that here in Panama? How do you, you
Yes,
know,
yes,
there's no sadhus around. Otherwise, I'd be happy.
yes,
It'd be
yes,
easy to do that. Easy. Yeah.
yes. And also, I think about it, I will be talking to the Unitarians in a few weeks on giving. And the impetus for this really is listening to the Swami and thinking about karma yoga. And at the end, I'll talk about karma yoga, but before I just talk about it as giving. And I think that's something that people are open to and receptive to.
Yeah.
Then at the end, I'll do the sales trick called bait and switch.
Well, I saw last week you posted one where the minister was talking about nothing and his death
Yes,
from his. I
yes,
was like, wow, now that's
yes. That
interesting.
was the most adventurous he had ever been in one of his sermons.
Well, I enjoyed it. Yeah. So
Yes.
maybe they're
Oh,
ready
really?
for
So,
expansion.
anyway, it
Mhm.
will be interesting. And again, thank you for joining us, Evelyn. And thank you, Carol, for putting up with me yet again.
Well,
So,
it's lovely to be with you both.
it's lovely to see you.
Nama,
And good
namaste.
namaste and good luck with your dogs.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.